Welcome to Weekend Shelf Control with me, Liam.
And me, Frankie.
And today we're talking about the books we read in January. We're a little bit late, but go easy on us. We're new to this. So I read three books. How about you, Frankie?
I read four.
So stick around to hear about the books we read in January. Who wants to go first? Should you, because you got four, so why don't you go first?
Okay. A couple of these I don't have too much to say, so we'll see. The first book I finished, I started in December,
Okay.
The Ministry of Time. Um, this one I can't even, I think I read about it in a magazine and it stood out to me. It's sort of a sci-fi time travel book, but it's written in a really light-hearted way.
Okay.
Um, and it's this woman who is a translator for the ministry, and she interviews for a new role to be a bridge, which is a special project, secret project that the ministry is doing where they are investigating time travel and they take people from different points of history and bring them back. And then the bridge is the person assigned to them to help them adjust to modern life and the way it is now. And so this woman gets Commander Graham Gore, who was on um, the Erebus and Terror ships that got stuck in the Arctic. So um, she's living with him, teaching him about modern life, and you know, they end up kind of liking each other quite a bit. But then it's the sort of, things aren't quite right with the ministry. What are they
Okay.
really up to? What is this project? Where is it leading? That kind of thing. And it's interesting because I found this really fun. I did rate it 4 stars, but you know, all this time later, I'm like, 4 stars seems a bit high. So I don't know.
Okay.
I might readjust to a 3.5. It is a really fun book, but yeah, it is quite lighthearted in style, and I'm not completely sure how I feel about how it all came to the end.
Okay. So I
Um,
have some questions.
yeah.
First, who's the author?
The author is Kaliane Bradley. Oh
O-
my God, I can't read.
Okay. Have they
Um,
have they done anything else that you've read?
I no, I haven't read anything else. Um, has she this she's done short stories.
Okay.
This is her first novel.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, do you think actually let me ask you this first. So from your description, it sounds like it's kind of like a blend between sci-fi and a bit of romance.
Mm.
What would you say that kind of like percentage between the two is?
Well, the sci-fi is basically just there's time travel, so
Yeah.
this it's pretty low on the sci-fi. The fun of
Okay.
it for me was just the people from history because you meet some of the other people as well.
Yeah.
The fun thing for me was them adjusting to modern life and some of the
Okay.
things. So it's definitely more the romance part, and then
Yeah.
I guess it's probably more romance with a bit of intrigue of what the ministry is up to with this project. So yeah, there's a little bit of sort of sci-fi stuff comes into it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like all sci-fi fans go rush to read this.
Yeah.
It is
But
definitely on the lighter side. It's not super technical
would you
or anything.
say romance fans should rush to read it?
Yeah, I think this would be, yeah, definitely think this is a good romance. It's not like full-on romance, but
Yeah.
I think the romance in it is pretty fun and pretty great. But yes, I wouldn't call it a romance book.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question that isn't for me because this isn't what I read books for, but for our audience who might like romance books. Is there any spice in it?
Um, I'm just trying to think. There's moments, but it's not, yeah, basically, if you're into spicy books, this is not like a
Cool. Does it
go-to.
do like the cut to black
Um,
sort of thing?
I'm just trying to think. I think if it doesn't cut to black, it's very basic description and then
Right.
cuts to the
Yeah.
next step. Yeah, it's definitely not full scenes of what's going on.
Yeah.
So
It's not a
yeah,
smutty one.
it's not anything like that. So
Okay.
yeah, don't
And
go
then,
to it if you like lots of spice because you won't get it here.
yeah. Do you think it's kind of the way it's ended, has it been left open for a sequel?
I mean, it could have a sequel, but I don't. It's sort of it's one of those endings where it hasn't fully tied everything up, but it's
Okay.
very much could end that way. Like
Yeah.
it hasn't left, it's not cliffhanger or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of like real life. Like you could go and see what happens next, but you don't have to for this story.
Okay. And then my last question, what was your favorite part about it?
Probably what I just said. I like the um because this guy was from Victorian times, so I like the whole Victorian man adjusting to modern life.
Okay. So is it a
Um,
bit of a like fish out of water kind of thing of like, I don't know, what's modern technology like through the eyes of a Victorian person?
yeah, it's pretty. It's not like the focus of it, but there's a lot of stuff there, and I enjoy that fish out of water plot
Yeah.
line in all sorts of ways. Like city person going to the country or just anything like that is pretty fun for
Yeah.
me. So I think him coming from history and also it's I don't know a lot about it, but just the fascination of the fact that he came from that Arctic
Yeah.
um, mysterious disappearance of everyone on board the ships, and there's pretty horrific
Okay.
story to think about.
So
Like,
hang on, just so I'm following. So he's from Victorian times, but she is from like, is it modern or is it like
yeah, it's
near future?
I think it's set modern day.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if it actually says. I think it's just assumed that it's now.
So like him being from Victorian times, is it very like in my mind that you could go down like almost cliche route of him like taking his coat off and putting it over puddles? Like that's how I imagine like Victorian chivalry. Is there any of that kind of thing in it, or is that a bit too on the
Um,
nose?
there kind of is. Like he freaks out a bit about certain things that are not, the polite society things. No one cares about stuff
Okay.
anymore. So he gets a
Yeah.
bit awkward about certain things.
Because I
Um,
guess like with feminism, right, certain like Victorian sort of more traditional like ways of courting would now seem almost like sexist.
hmm. Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Like, obviously, they've not made him fully
Yeah.
one of those kind of guys, but there
Yeah.
was a bit of an adjustment for certain things. So,
Okay.
yeah, because I mean, I guess just had to keep him likable.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. At the end, um, there was a fun author's note talking about it and saying how to have, there's like one photo.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't see. That's the only photo in existence of the real person.
Okay.
And so she made a note about, he's a pretty good looking guy. So I thought that was pretty fun at the end. But yeah,
Okay.
so definitely a fun book. It's not like super memorable, favorite of all time, but it would definitely like when she writes her next book, I would definitely read it.
Yeah. Cool. All
Okay.
right. Um, so this I similar to you, right? This book I started in December. This is Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, Book One, The Way of Kings. It's not a it's not a small book. It took me a while to get through this. And I think I said in the last episode, right? It's not because it's bad or it's not like challenging to read. The writing isn't dense or anything like that. It's just these are big pages, and while it is a good book, it didn't like grab me to the point where I couldn't put it down until page 900. It's 1,008 pages or something like that in this book. Um, this is my sixth Brandon Sanderson book, and he does have a tendency to do what's called, I think, like his fans call it the Sanderlanche, is it the Sanderlanche, like Avalanche, but Sanderson, where your final act, kind of everything is building to this like Sanderlanche of things happening, stakes have been established, things get exciting, and it that definitely happens here, but it's still good building up to it. So you basically follow three principal characters, your like point of view characters. You've got Kaladin, who this is kind of his book. So I was doing a bit of research because I'm looking forward to reading the others. And each of these books has a kind of central character where you get more of their backstory fleshed out. So with Kaladin, you get some of his history, how he got to the point where he is at the start of this book, which is right at the start, he's kind of like a commander of a little troop of soldiers fighting in an army. It takes place in a world that's ravaged by storms, and there's magic, there's politics, there's like honestly, Sanderson has done such a good job of fully fleshing out this entire world. As an example, because there's all these storms, the plant life will like suck into the ground when there's a storm coming or when it like senses danger or if people are near, and then sort of re-emerges. But there will be parts of the land that isn't as frequently hit by storms, so that plant life is a bit more sticks around. There's like a lot of the animals in it have like shells and kind of like cling to rocks and stuff and kind of like weather the storms that way. The opening prologue follows an assassin taking someone out, which basically sets in motion a whole bunch of stuff. The assassin takes out a king, but there are multiple kings in this. So like I said, you start with Kaladin, who is leading this sort of small band of soldiers. Something happens that I won't go into, but he basically ends up being a slave, and he becomes part of this crew. They're called a bridge crew. And where this land has been ravaged by storms, you've got this area where there's this war going on. And there's a bunch of kind of like plateaus that have been created from the storms. So like little spires essentially with a bunch of sort of land on top. So the bridge crews have to put these bridges down so the soldiers can cross to fight because there's a resource that is being contested for essentially. But obviously the bridge crews, their whole purpose from the point of view of the military is to be a distraction. So it's like the worst job you could possibly have. That's just one character. You also follow Shallan, who's in a completely different part of the land, who her father has died recently. Her family are in a bunch of debt. So she goes to this sort of like scholarly place to study under this woman called Jasna, who can she has an item that allows her to essentially manipulate material. And Shallan's like, right, if I can steal that, I can go back to my family. We can figure out how to use the item. We can create the resources we need to start making money. You got that going on. And then the third point of view character is someone called Dalinar, who is quite high up in the military. He is uncle to the king, who has kind of like ascended after the assassin at the start. That king is quite young and very paranoid, thinks that someone's coming after him. Dalinar has this history of being this like really well-renowned fighter, but now as he's getting older, he's started getting these visions of a book called The Way of Kings, which has teachings in it that's all around unity and bringing people together. But the way that the king has set his army up is you've got these different sort of camps that are all led by other sort of nobility. And they're all competing to go for these plateaus for the resources. So they're not really working together in unison, but they're fighting a group called the Parshendi, who they think are responsible for the assassination of the king in the prologue. Following all of that so far? It's a
Yeah.
big book. There's a lot that goes on in it. I'm honestly like scratching the surface there. Um, I will say Sanderson writes in a way that is very accessible. So even though like it's a lot of like big ideas that are happening, and like I said, like there's a political system, there's a magic system, there's history to this land. It's it never feels like it's being delivered in exposition dumps. It's very I feel like, and I have read alternative views that don't necessarily agree with this, but I feel like it's quite naturally woven into the story. Um, I have some minor complaints, which are there are times when you'll be reading like the point of view of one character, and then it ends on a cliffhanger, and then you go to like another character, and you're like, I need to get through this so I can get back to see how that cliffhanger is resolved, which I don't necessarily love as a sort of like authorial decision. When it comes to fantasy books with multiple point of view characters, I'm always going to go back to Joe Abercrombie, who is my favorite author. So he, I think, really masterfully directs your attention. And it never feels that kind of like, oh, we've got a cliffhanger going on and now we're going to go somewhere else. He always kind of gives you just what you need to be okay with moving to a different sort of part of the story. Didn't feel like that happened so much here. And there are these like interludes midway through where you follow and there's some of other characters that are sort of dotted around the land. And while that does give interesting context to what's going on, some of it was a bit like I don't really get how this like necessarily ties into what is the main drive of the story.
I
Um,
guess too with those cliffhanger things. I've had that in books before, and yeah, it's you just like, wow, what's going to happen next? And then you turn the
yeah,
page, and the next chapter is gone to something else.
exactly.
But in a book that large, it could be a number of pages until you get back to that person's story to see how the cliffhanger continues.
Yes, sometimes it is. Yes, and that
So,
can be
yeah.
frustrating. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a minor quibble that I
Mm.
had with it. And also, as soon as you get to a book this length, I do feel like the book has to be good to justify its length. So the longer a book goes, the better it has to be to earn those pages. I will say I gave this 4.5 out of 5. So it is incredibly good. My sixth Brandon Sanderson book now, but the first in the Stormlight Archive. There is a character that has appeared in all of the books so far. And like I don't know if you're familiar with sort of Brandon Sanderson's work, but essentially he has different sort of groupings of stories, but they all take place in this universe called the Cosmere. And as a character, I think they're called like a world hopper. So they can jump between the worlds that these different stories take place in. And that character, when you figure out who he is in this book, it's just such a delightful little reveal. And there's a kind of chapter with him and one of the point of view characters that was just, you know, for someone who's read like five others and seen this character pop up, it was nice getting like a significant chunk of time with them. And some of the points they were making, I big fan of 'cause all around like the art of storytelling and how important is authorial intent in storytelling, which is something that I could talk for far too long about, so I won't. But yeah, so honestly, I wouldn't necessarily say start here as your first Brandon Sanderson book, but if like me, you're reading them in sort of publication order, I was intimidated to start this because of how long it is, but it is worth it.
Yeah, my brain is similar to yours that I like to read things in order, even if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that just feels like the right
Feels
way.
right.
And
Exactly.
if there's multiple like chronological order versus publication order, I generally
Yeah.
go in publication order because
Yeah.
that's how they came out. And then
Yeah.
maybe if I did a reread later, I would do the reread in chronological just to see how
Yeah.
that
Well,
changes things.
even Sanderson himself has his kind of recommended order, and it isn't publication. So his first published book is called Elantris, and a lot of people are a bit sniffy about it because it is a little kind of rough around the edges. But up until this one, it was my favorite Sanderson book. This does just about beat it out. So I would 100% say go with publication order. But Sanderson recommends starting with the first Mistborn book. But yeah, you've got Elantris, the Mistborn trilogy, Warbreaker, and then this one. Elantris takes place in its own little world. The Mistborn trilogy takes place in its own little world. Warbreaker takes place in its own little world. The Way of Kings in its own little world, but it's all linked together via this Cosmere, essentially. Just
I love a universe with
yeah.
individual series within. Side note, did you buy that book in store? Is that the UK covers or did you order that special?
This I ordered this special. I actually brought this when I was out in America because I
Mm.
so one, the UK covers are different and I don't love them. They've got a more
Are
sort of
they the
black and white.
white with the
Yeah.
blue? Yeah, that's what we've got
Yeah.
here.
And I don't love those as much. The other issue, so I decided to collect all of Brandon Sanderson's books in hardback because the paperback, because it's such a big book, the paperback they've split into two,
Mm.
and that bothers me because how do you log that on Goodreads? And also like, do you have a little break after the first book and go off and read some other stuff and then come back to book two? Like, is that how the reading experience was intended? It
I
didn't
think
make
they
sense
just
to
do
me.
that. I know the Song of Ice and Fire, I think there's one in that that's split into
Yeah,
two. And I don't know if that's meant to be like that or that's another one that they just
it's
decided
just too big.
people
Yeah,
couldn't read long books, so they had to split it. But
yeah. I think it's
yeah.
more an issue, like a publishing issue, with just the cost of. If you think about it, right? If you make one paperback book that's huge, you're only getting sort of one cost for that. If you split it in
Mm,
two, you're in theory doubling your profits, right? And it's
yeah.
also probably cheaper to make shorter books because I can't remember where I saw him talking about it, but he basically had to work with a publisher to get them to agree to print a book this big because it's not cost effective from a publishing perspective to print huge books.
Mm. Because yeah, I have seen those covers and they look nicer. But yeah, they're not in store here. Even on Amazon, I couldn't see the other versions. So that's
No.
kind of annoying. I saw a video someone did that randomly popped up on my feed about their recommended order, and they had a stack of all the books on the table, and I saw how
Yeah.
many were split into two.
Yeah. A couple of years ago in America, because when I picked this up, they had just brought out paperback versions with these covers not being split in two. So
Mm.
that is another option if I know some people don't like hardback because they just don't like the experience of holding them and reading them, etc. So if you are like a paperback fan but you do want it all in one, they do exist. And I think they should be kind of readily available now after they were
Yeah,
made
I
a
might
couple of
have
years ago.
to do some searching because I don't know. The other thing is though, it's obviously going to be a lot cheaper to get the other covers and then I can have a full matching set.
Yeah,
So
there
we'll
is that.
see. Of
Yeah.
course, I have to start reading first to see if I want to read the entire series, but I mean, there's a
And
good
this is
chance
this
I
is
will.
just a note for those collectors out there as well. Brandon Sanderson now has his own um, sort of specialist publishing company called Dragonsteel Books, I believe. And he does these 10th anniversary, I think it's 10th anniversary, leather-bound editions. So you can get, I don't know, up to whatever 10 years ago the most recent one was. Um, so like a Lantris. The five that I mentioned, plus this, all are available in leather-bound, which are just very fancy. They've got illustrations inside. They come with like, wear gloves when handling these because the oils on your skin can impact the leather, things like that.
Wow.
If you're
Which,
really
yeah,
finicky,
I bet they cost a lot.
they do cost a lot, and it's the exact same issue. Way of Kings has been split into two, and it bothers me. I can't explain why. It just bothers me.
Also, you got to add on shipping as well,
Yeah,
which I'm sure for a big leather-bound hardback is going to be a lot. Because American shipping, he's in America, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
American shipping seems really ridiculous. Like it's got so high. So I imagine
I
it would be quite a large amount for shipping.
I will say I did an order on Dragonsteel recently, because the main reason is, and you won't be able to see it, but I've got a pin board back there, and on it there is now a little Brandon Sanderson pin that I wanted to get. And he did four books a couple of years ago that he wrote during lockdown and then released them. Did like a real successful Kickstarter around it called like the Secret Projects, and they had these nice sort of hardback versions. I was like, I want those. And so I don't know if you're familiar, but The Wheel of Time, written by Robert Jordan. He died before he could finish the series, so his wife got Brandon Sanderson to help, like based off of his notes, finishing off the series. So that Dragonsteel company are now releasing leather-bound Wheel of Time books, and I kind of want them. They're doing one a
I
year.
think I looked that up after you mentioned it a while ago,
Yeah.
and yeah, I saw the price and went, that's not for me.
No, well, the thing is, they're doing one a year, so I'm like, I can kind of justify spreading the cost out. It does mean it's going to take me 15 years to complete this collection, and that just feels scary thinking about that. I'll be 50. Will I? Yeah. Oh God, I'll be over 50 when that's finished. I might be dead. It's fine. Who knows? But yeah, I have pre-ordered the first one. So, and I didn't think the shipping cost was that unreasonable, but it might be different going to Australia versus the UK.
Hmm. I just know it's been a while since I have done an order from the US. A lot of companies I'm buying from are in the UK, which can be pricey. I mean, shipping is just pricey now anyway. But yeah, there's a couple of times I've gone to buy like movies from American places and the shipping is more than the thing I want. So you pretty
Yeah.
much have to wait. If there's a sale on and I can get a really good deal on what I'm buying, then it's worth paying the shipping. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely don't buy as much as I used to. But also
Which
the
I mean,
company that I was buying movies from has really put up their prices on the movies as well. So
yeah.
there is
Which company was
that.
that?
Vinegar Syndrome.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Hmm. But yeah, I think it was Black Friday. There's a movie I had just watched and they had a sale on the 4K. And so I got a few
Yeah.
things and
I
yeah.
I have seen, this is completely unrelated to book stuff, but I have seen that Arrow have got a Valentine's Day weekend sale on at the moment.
Yes,
So
I deleted that email. I'm like, I can't spend
yeah.
money at the moment. I don't want to know.
When we finish recording, I'll be looking at, because the issue I have with that is if I don't get the limited edition stuff when it's available,
Mm.
when it comes to getting it on eBay, it's so expensive. Like I've been collecting the Scream 4K steelbooks, and the only ones I'm missing are 3 and 4 because 4 hasn't been released yet because of licensing rights and stuff. But I missed the announcement when they did 3. So when it came out, it was like 26.99, £85 on eBay.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
I know
So
that's the way of the world now. People just trying to make money.
yeah. Anyway, none of that is related
Mm.
to books.
Yeah. Okay, well my second book I read on my Kindle, and I don't have too much to say. It's a book a lot of people have read, and it's a thriller. Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, because it's been on my radar for ages. I've read one other Ruth Ware book. I can't remember the title now. It was a long time ago. Um, and then I think it was the book before Woman in Cabin 10, perhaps, and that's why I was aware of it. But I wanted to watch the Netflix movie with Keira Knightley, and I wanted to read the book before I watched the movie. So this is a thriller about a woman who works for a travel writing company, and her boss normally does, or someone higher up normally does all the fun stuff, but she is about to give birth, so she can't go on this trip, which is to go on this fancy um ship. I can't yacht, fancy yacht. I don't know, super
Yeah.
yacht. It's like a
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's like 10 cabins total.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just this rich guy is starting this thing, and some of the travelers are his rich friends, and some
Okay.
are, like her, like a travel writer and
Right.
those kind of people to just publicize the thing and spread the word.
Yeah.
And so shortly before that, she has someone break into her house. So she is dealing with that, and she drinks a lot, and is having issues with her fiance, I think he
Okay.
is, or boyfriend. I can't remember if which one. Anyway, so she goes on this trip on this boat, and she's got an itinerary of different, trying out the spa and having the dinners and all of that. And she talks to this woman in cabin 10, which is next to her. And then during the night, she hears a scream, hears a splash, and says, "Oh, someone's gone overboard." So she wakes everyone up, or like the security people and that, to say, the woman in cabin 10's gone overboard. And they're like, "There's no woman in cabin 10. Um, you were drinking a lot. You've had this break-in in your past, so you're stressed. So, maybe, you know, it didn't actually happen."
Okay.
And then, so the rest of the book is her trying to figure out who the woman was and what happened, and, you know, if something actually happened. And yeah, so it's fun enough. It didn't blow me away, but it was interesting enough to keep reading to find out what was going
Yeah.
on and all of that. So it was fun for that. I did start watching the movie afterwards, and the movie kind of immediately, it was probably a bad idea to watch it straight after reading, but
Yeah.
it changed everything at the beginning. So there was no break-in. She was
Hmm.
a hard-hitting journalist who still had a traumatic experience, but in a sort of what is it, like a higher up way, not just a travel writer for some
Yeah.
magazine. I don't know about the fiance because they didn't mention one, and they flagged something in the movie that, like a flag of what was going on really
Mm.
early and really obviously, I thought,
Right.
to make you start thinking, but they also changed the interactions with a character than what was in the
Yeah.
book. So I don't know. I turned it off because I was like, I can't deal with all the differences. So I'm going to go back later and finish it. But yeah, so I don't know how much it's going to follow what happened in the book, and maybe, that what flagged for me won't really matter in what they end up
Yeah.
doing with the story. So yeah, I'm curious to see how it all goes. But yes, I was not super into the movie straight away, besides Keira Knightley being in it, because I really like her. So we'll see.
Okay. So I don't read like a lot of thriller books. So my assumption is they're kind of good or bad based on how successfully they pull off like the final reveal or twist, etc. Right? Like because it feels like it's all building to that.
Mm.
Did this pull it off in a way that you thought was satisfying?
I think so. Like, I didn't I can't remember. There were definitely moments where I'm like, I got to keep reading to see what's going on. I just wasn't completely grabbed by the entire story and how it turned out.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
as far as a thriller goes, I think there were some moments that were felt a little bit unrealistic or a little bit of why would you do that?
Yeah.
But but overall, I think it was pretty well done.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. If someone's interested in the sound of the story, would you recommend they just watch the movie to get like the sort of like broad picture, or ignore the movie and just stick with the book?
Well, it's hard to tell. I've only seen the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
I well, I don't know. I would always recommend a book. Well, it depends what you're into. If you're a reader, I would definitely probably recommend the book first because
Mhm.
whichever one you watch or whichever one you experience first is
Yeah.
going to spoil what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, that
And
makes
I
sense.
feel like you probably want to read the book to get the full story, then to read the book after watching.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I like to watch the movie first, but it depends. I
I
don't know.
find if I do that, I then count, I cannot picture the characters as anything other than the actors.
Yes, which sometimes I like,
Yeah.
um, depending on the movie and the like Harry Potter, I actually ended up seeing the movie before I read the books. And
Yeah.
because I liked Alan Rickman in the movie so much, I was like, I want more of this character. So I started reading the books. So I actually had the characters in my head from
Yeah.
the
It's going to
movies and
be
books.
interesting, particularly if you take like Snape, for example, how that's going to change for a younger generation if they watch the TV show and then the movies and then read the books. Who are they going to be picturing? Because I think the actor
Mm.
that they've cast as Snape is just very different to Alan Rickman.
Mm.
Um, so I wonder,
Although I
like,
think you would want to be very different to make it its
yeah,
own thing.
yeah. But I wonder what people will kind of be like, oh,
Mm.
that was the more memorable portrayal, I guess.
I think it'd be very hard to be more memorable than Alan Rickman.
But they're going to try with the TV show, bless
Yeah,
them.
I am curious. I'll watch it because um I don't know. Harry Potter is one of my favorite kind of like I love the whole, you're new to magic. You have to go to a school and learn
Yeah,
about this world and everything. That's
yeah.
so
It's
yes,
it's
I'm
a really good
curious.
concept. It's just a shame about J.K. Rowling and
Yeah, I
all of that.
mm, I know it's one of those tricky things, but I feel like I love the story so much that I just can't sort of give up on everything
Yeah,
just because she's awful. So,
yeah. My
yeah.
hope is that when she's no longer with us, whenever that may be, that the fans can kind of reclaim the books because I yes, there's some like questionable racial like stuff in the
Mm.
books that isn't great, but I do think overall the kind of morality and messaging in the books is very much one of inclusivity and kind of, supporting each other and live and let live. I don't think the her current worldviews are in the books. So my hope is at some point the fans can reclaim those.
Mm. Anyway, back to happier things. What's your next book?
Um, did you give a rating for that last one?
Oh,
Sorry.
I gave that 3 stars. It was
Okay.
3 stars is a good rating for me.
Yeah.
Basically, I should just maybe mention that my ratings are 1 star, I didn't like it, which
Yeah.
rarely happens in books because I'll just DNF. 2 stars average, 3 stars good, 4 stars great, and 5 stars amazing. So I don't give out too many 5 stars. So yes, 3 stars is good for me. Good time. It's
Yeah.
not one I would want to purchase for my physical collection because it was just fine
Yeah.
to read once and that's it. So yes, good
Yeah.
time. Not one of the best of the month.
Do you do half star ratings for
I do
books?
half stars, yes.
Okay. I'm the same as you. I very rarely give a 5-star rating. I've been doing Goodreads now for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I think. And in that time, so I don't know about you, Goodreads is very annoying because you can't do half-star ratings on
Yes.
Goodreads. Um, and I was at a book event last year and was speaking to an indie author, and I always used to round down on Goodreads because it didn't make sense to me that a book that I gave like 4.5 stars should then get a 5-star rating. But speaking to indie authors, they're like, it does make a huge difference. So we would appreciate rounding up instead of down. So after that conversation, they had like good justification for it. I went back through all of my reviews where I'd given half-star ratings and bumped them up. So I have what I consider like authentic 5-star ratings, and I always include at the bottom what my like rating is. So the ones that are genuine 5 out of 5, there's maybe two of them in the last 6 years. But I've got a
Wow.
bunch that were like 4.5 out of 5 that, for the purposes of Goodreads, have been bumped up to a 5-star.
I don't know how up to date it is, but I had a tag on Goodreads for my five-star books. I've been using Goodreads since 2013 and I've got 90 in that.
Blimey.
As far as rounding, I look at the book. It's a book by book
Mm.
thing because if I round up, sometimes that seems too high, so I'll round
Okay.
down. And yeah, so it depends. Whereas I
Yeah.
can look at a book and go, if I round that down, that seems too low to go down, so it goes
Yeah.
up. So, it depends.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so my next book is Only Psychos by Daniel J. Volpe. Lovely little cover here.
It's a good one.
This is my sixth Volpe book, and he is rapidly becoming one of my favorite indie horror authors. He's based out in the US, and he has this really interesting way of writing. I think last time we spoke about splatterpunk. So he writes sort of splatterpunk extreme horror that he does an interesting thing where he blends kind of sex with horror in a way that when I've read other authors who have tried to do this, it comes off as a little bit immature sometimes, or a little bit like, oh, I'm writing it to see if I can get away with it, sort of thing. And it doesn't quite work for me. Volpe makes it work. It just it always, oh, I don't know about always, but from what I've read at least, it tends to give you insights into the characters. It doesn't feel gratuitous, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's probably my favorite thing about him is the way that he manages to blend those two ideas. With Only Psychos, it takes place in the state of New York. There is a huge storm coming, and there's this little sort of dinky family-run hotel, and a group of characters all converge to this hotel. But the hotel is harboring a secret. So the book opens with a prologue that kind of reveals that the owners of the hotel have two kids, and one of the kids isn't quite right. And there's a family that are trying to get a room, and there's a little girl, and she goes off exploring and meets the kid that isn't quite right, and narrowly avoids really bad things happening. And then we cut forward, I think like 18 years or something like that, and you follow. There is a teenage couple who are basically on the run, but they live stream themselves performing adult acts, let's say, to make money. So you're following that couple, and they want to get out of the storm. They want to get to the hotel. They're like, we're going to do a stream and make some money at this hotel. It's all going to be great. The owner's already clocked him, and the owner has some like secret cameras hidden up, so he's looking forward to his own watching his own little movie. Um, you follow this mum with her two kids. I think the boy is like 12 or 13 or so, and the girl's a little bit younger. They try to go to a different hotel. The dad is away on a business trip. The other hotel's fully booked, so they end up in this little sort of rundown place. You follow the the brother of the kid that like lives at the hotel that isn't quite all there. He's coming back. He's been away for ages. You also follow a guy who has just stolen a bunch of drugs from a motorbike gang and is trying to hide from them and get out of the storm. And then you follow this other guy who has gone on this sort of like murder rampage, but he's been killing children. And he's got like a dead body in his car, and he's decided to go to the hotel to get out of the storm, but he's really messed up. So you've got this like this
Mm.
cast of characters, and I'd say like the first like half of the book or so, maybe not quite that long, it's just setting the chessboard essentially. It's getting all of them to the hotel, but then the storm hits, the power goes out, bad things start happening. And what Volpe does extremely well in this book is the mother with the two kids. There's nothing kind of sinister about any of them. So you have this real kind of wholesome trio to kind of anchor the story around of just being like, I don't care what happens to all of the other characters because they're all various shades of awful, but I want those three to be okay, right? I'm not going to spoil things, but it's very rare in a Volpe book that everyone makes it out okay. Um,
So
and
then there's that extra tenseness about if they will.
exactly, exactly. And there's some really creepy like scenes like um the 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 boy and his sister go to a vending machine and the guy that's been killing children comes out and introduces himself to them. And the boy just immediately senses that there is something not right about this guy. But the little girl, she's just answering like very innocently, and his whole attention is on her. And it's so tense because you're like, right, I know this guy is a nasty piece of work. It honestly, when it comes to Splatterpunk, what Daniel J. Volpe is doing, I think is just really impressive. He also, I didn't notice it in this book, but maybe I missed it. But other books that he's done also have that kind of shared universe thing going on. I don't know if there are any references to his previous books in here. If there are, I didn't clock them, but I wouldn't be surprised if something happens, like one of the characters referenced here appears later on. That wouldn't surprise me at all. The only downside to this that I will say is one, like I mentioned, it takes a bit of time just to get going because you're setting that chessboard, but also it ends on a cliffhanger,
Uh,
and I don't believe there's been a sequel to this, and it's a totally fine cliffhanger. Like you don't necessarily, it's not one of those ones where you're like, oh, I need it resolved, but I want it resolved, and it's just
is it the kind of cliffhanger like you kind of can decide which way things go? Or do you think
kind of.
it's in the setup for a sequel, perhaps?
I don't necessarily know if it's necessarily setting up a sequel. Um, I do think you can kind of decide how you want it to end, maybe. I just would have wanted like one more chapter. I don't need everything neatly tied up in a bow, but there is a reveal that happens. That the reveal itself isn't necessarily surprising, but where it happens and just like the surroundings of it happening, I want to know what happens next.
Mm.
I just need
Well,
one
I'm
more. Like,
curious. I wrote that down because it sounds really interesting. So um,
I will
I
say,
will read it and then I will talk to you about the ending.
yeah. I mean, I gave it 4 out of 5. I will say it is an extreme horror. So for those that are watching this that maybe have trigger warnings, just pay attention to them because it does push boundaries. In a way that I think is responsible. And again, like I said, it doesn't ever feel gratuitous, but just something to be mindful of. Like, always when it comes to extreme horror and splatterpunk, always read cautiously. And for those that do have triggers, don't ignore them, would be my advice.
My next book is horror as well.
Okay.
Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, which has
Ooh,
been on my shelf for many years. My mum actually borrowed this and read it and returned it, and then it sat there
yeah.
for more years. So, but I finally have read Joe Hill because, I mean, that's why I picked it up because I'm like,
Yeah.
I've got to finally read him and see. And this was a really interesting book because it had a slow start for me.
Okay.
Um, I always enjoyed the writing, but the story, it didn't grab me and I wasn't completely sure. The setup is definitely in my interests because this
Yeah.
guy is a death metal rock god, albeit an
Okay.
aging one. And so, you know, I like rock and metal, that's my world. So it always interests me to have a musician in a book that, especially if it's a
Yeah.
metal musician, because it doesn't happen as often. So and that he's into all this dark stuff, has a collection of all sorts of, snuff films and different witch things and whatever. And he hears from his assistant about someone is selling a ghost online, pretty much. And
Okay.
so he's like, oh, you know, got to have it for my collection. So purchases it and it arrives and it's this suit in a box that the ghost is attached to. And then things start happening and um, you know, atmosphere in the house, there's cold spots, and then he sees a ghost, and then things basically start spiraling for him and his girlfriend, who is, I don't know if she lives there. I think she lives there. Otherwise, she's staying with him anyway. And so, and he's got two dogs, and there's just stuff continuously happening, and it just builds. And I don't want to say too much, but I'll just say that perhaps it's not an accident that he ends up with this ghost. And
Okay.
basically, by the time I got to halfway through the book, then I was so far in and needing to keep reading and knowing what was happening. And so I finished the second half of the book within a couple of days after that, which really helped with my getting back into reading because this is about
Yeah.
400 pages, I think. Yeah, just under 400 pages. So to read 200 pages in a couple of days was a nice boost.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can't say too much. There's some really cool stuff. There's one scene in here that I just found really magical. It's just a tiny little moment, and I can't even talk about it because of spoilers. But I picture it's like a movie in my head when I'm reading a
Yeah.
book. And when I read this little moment, I had to actually just like reread it a couple of times and kind of
Yeah.
picture it a couple of times again, because I thought it was so great and I can't talk about it. But it was just I mean, it was just an interesting idea and description of it. And it also connected to the scene in that it helped. Yeah, I can't say spoilers because it
Yeah.
happens quite later in the book. But
Mm.
yes, I will say for anyone who's read it, I mean, it's not going to help because it's just a small moment, but it was the um in a kitchen with the little girl. Um, but the scene relates to a dog. And so,
Okay.
yes, that's all I'll say. But yes, definitely will be reading more Joe Hill now because yeah, it's interesting that after such a slow start, it was really good. This one is the opposite of the other one. I gave this 4 stars and I'm like, maybe I should give it a 4.5. I don't know, it's one of those ones that is, it didn't completely blow me away, but the second half was, it's still in my mind and lingering. So I feel like I should bump it up to a 4.5.
Interesting. See, I haven't read any Joe Hill yet, but I did just grab this off my shelf. I did recently pick up this as my first Joe Hill book to read. Um, okay, with the yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So
Yes, I
I'm
purchased that right after I finished this book.
yeah, because again, like as we're aware, Joe Hill, son of Stephen King. I'm very curious to kind of actually maybe you'll be able to answer this. Is his writing similar to his dad's at all, or is it very much his
Oh,
own thing, or are there traces of it?
I feel too scared to say. I don't I
Okay,
don't feel qualified. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to publicly say anything. I will just say I
okay,
like the
fair enough.
writing, but yeah, I don't know. You'll probably be better to answer that because you've read a whole bunch of Stephen King recently. But yes, I
Okay,
don't know.
well maybe come back for our takes on that once we've both read more Stephen King and Joe Hill.
Mm.
Because is 20th Century Ghost his first published one?
I'm
I feel
not
like that
too
might.
sure. I didn't research it too much. I mainly picked that as my next Joe Hill because
Hmm.
it's got the black phone
Yeah.
story in it, and I'm curious after watching the movies to read the original story.
So I'm going to confess something here that I feel so silly about. But I've seen Joe Hill in bookshops for years now, and there is a book of his. I don't know if the cover is the same for you guys, but over in the UK, it's a license plate.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and it's. I always just looked at it, and I just my brain didn't read it. It just went, oh, NOS 4A2U. Bit weird. It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out it was Nosferatu. Like embarrassingly long. And it's clocked now, and I'm like, right, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm curious to read this now, but like my brain just did not make that connection. I think because it saw the license plate, it just didn't go, you need to think about this. It just went, numbers, numbers and letters.
I
Who
think I
cares?
knew the title before I ever saw the cover of the book, so
Right.
I don't think I ever had to think about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm an idiot. But I am looking forward to reading some Joe Hill. So I'm sure in future episodes we'll be talking more about that. But it's encouraging to know that heart-shaped box is a at least a good one to look
I
forward to.
think I haven't looked around too much, but I know there's very mixed reviews. I know a lot of people don't like it as much, and I can
Right.
understand that. Like, I think, um, you know, it could be better, but
Mm.
yeah, especially that second half. I just found it a really interesting story in the end after the slow start.
Okay. Do you think it'll get turned into some sort of like movie or TV adaptation?
I mean, it could. I don't know if it would and how well that
Mm.
would happen because yeah, I don't know. I'm a horror movie person, so I don't get scared by things. So I'm just like, would they be able to make it creepy and enjoyable? But then I
Yeah,
know a lot
I'm
of people that aren't horror movie people, it'd be very easy to make something creepy. So
yeah. See, I'm not sure if after the success of the Black Phone and Black Phone 2, if that's going to open the doors for more adaptations of his work. Because obviously again, Stephen King has set a pretty good sort of template for just do adaptations, and some of them are going to work really well, and some of
Mm.
them we just don't talk about. And it'll be interesting to see if Joe sort of follows in those footsteps, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure if, I mean, it'd be interesting to read his other novels,
Yeah.
to see if they would sort of be more the go-to ones. I don't know if
Mm.
this one would, eh, maybe.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, so my last read for January. Um, I have been kind of like double teaming these two authors because I'm trying to. One of my projects that we spoke about in the last episode is I am working my way through Daniel J. Volpe's books, and I'm also working my way through Aron Beauregard's books. So I read my next one, which was All Smiles Until I Return. This is my 14th Beauregard book. So I've got a pretty good handle at this point of his writing style generally. But what was interesting about this one is, are you familiar with the term bizarro at all?
No, not. I have an idea of what it is, but not an
Mm.
exact definition.
So I kind of stumbled across this years ago, before COVID happened. Um, and it's basically the way I saw it described is it's the literary equivalent of like cult movies, where
Mm.
it doesn't necessarily have conventional logic, but it's almost experimental. It's authors just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's prioritizing fun typically, but also like bonkers out there high concept ideas. Just to give you an example, one of the ones I previously read was called Help, a Bear is Eating Me, which is all told from a guy that's stuck under a vehicle while a bear eats him. So, we're talking about these. There's one of the most sort of like prolific Bizarro authors is a guy called Carlton Mellick III. I've got a couple of his books on my shelf, but I haven't got around to them yet. One's called Satan Burger. One's called I want to say The Cannibals of Candyland, something like that. I discovered him because he has a book called The Haunted Vagina.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more. I don't know what it's
Hmm.
about. I'm just going to assume. But I read one of his books called Ape Shit, which is like a kind of Friday the 13th inspired sort of slasher book, essentially. And it was fun, but also just weird in places. Alan Beauregard has dabbled with Bizarro previously. He did a book called Hallucinations, which was a collection of short stories. And to give you an example of sort of Beauregard's interpretation of hallucinations, he wrote it after a sort of drug trip that went bad, and he was like, "Oh, let's write a story about this." The most memorable short story in that book is about this guy who thinks he's a bird, and he's confused because his friends don't recognize him as a bird. He thinks he's died and come back as a bird, essentially, after a drug experience that's gone bad.
Wow.
And he sort of starts living in this sort of nest with other birds, and he's jealous that they're getting fed and he's not. And it's just it's bonkers. It's bonkers. And this, All Smiles Until I Return, kind of leans into that bizarro idea, but blends with extreme horror. So you follow a guy named Andy who is working his office job, typical 9 to 5. He's working like a sort of on the phone dealing with irate, angry customers, and he has to kind of keep a cool, calm composure. Easier said than done. And one of the things that they have to do in this office job is I think like once a week they all get called into a room and they review tapes of recordings. And while this is happening, one of his co-workers leaves and returns with a gun, and Andy doesn't make it out of the room. That's not a spoiler. This happens in like chapter one. Um, and then you follow Andy as he goes into maybe hell, maybe a version of hell, maybe just a sort of coma induced hallucination thing. But when he gets shot, it's he's trying to protect a girl that's in the office who's already been injured. He's trying to get her out of the room, and he gets shot trying to escape. And he meets her in this sort of hellscape, and they have to navigate it together. But it is just sort of like Beauregard's excuse to just throw bonkers stuff at the reader, where there are these like creatures called thorns that have a very kind of like thornish appearance that are huge, and the idea is this hellscape is built around this concept of entertainment, but entertainment for these thorn creatures, and they find entertainment through torturing humans. And there's an idea that humans have just been created purely for the purpose of entertaining these creatures. And the book is okay until it does something that I thought was really interesting. And I don't necessarily think this is a spoiler, but I'm going to try and cautiously talk about it. So, the woman that Andy was trying to protect, who he meets up with, they develop feelings for each other in this horrible environment. It's described as like all the landscape is just looking like flesh with teeth dotted around everywhere. And like there are people that are just having like orgies and attacking each other and just weird stuff. But there's also like demons and stuff and like just absolute nonsense is happening. And this woman has two children, and Andy gets put into a position where he has to make a decision of if he has to spend eternity with this woman in this landscape, would she want her children there with her? And if she does, how would he get them there? That's all I'll
Hmm.
say. It's a really interesting question that is tackled, but I didn't love the book. I'll be honest, I gave it 2.5 out of 5 because mostly because that idea is just really interesting. But I found kind of repetitive with just sort of describing all these awful things that keep happening. Oh, also in this sort of hellscape, you can't die. You'll just regenerate. So you'll get like attacked and torn limb from limb, and you'll just eventually regenerate. Um, the guy that was shooting up the office building, he also is in this hellscape, and I think there could have been more done with that. Like they kind of like meet him a little bit, and it's like a little bit of kind of back and forth, but I just feel like there's some ideas here that could have been expanded upon more, and it was just a little bit disappointing that they weren't for me. I would have liked to have seen some more done with the premise that you have here. I mean, you can tell from that cover, right? Like
Yeah.
these little things are sort of tentacles from demons that rip you and stuff and go inside you in places that you wouldn't necessarily want them inside you. And yeah, it's as an experiment of blending Bizarro with extreme horror. Um, it's interesting from that perspective, I guess. If you find that sort of stuff interesting, it's not a particularly long book, and I was looking for some short sort of reads after The Way of Kings.
Yeah.
I've read so much better from Beauregard, so for me it was like a little bit disappointing, but overall kind of average, I would say. So that was all smiles until I return.
My final book that I finished in January is All That Really Matters by Nicole Deese, and I've got light coming in. This is another one that has been on my shelf for quite a little while, and I thought I'd finally get to it. This is a romance book about a girl, Molly, and she is a influencer and has a YouTube channel, I think, or Instagram. Um, Probably
One of
Instagram,
the
actually.
socials.
Probably Instagram. That's, I think, more the thing. Anyway,
Or
so
TikTok, maybe.
no, it's more longer form
Right.
content. So she does fashion and beauty stuff, and she has a pretty popular channel. She's got a manager who's also become her boyfriend, who you can tell straight away is just, it's not a good relationship.
Okay.
And basically, she is in the running to go on a TV show, and her manager says to look good for this TV show, you need to do something that is more sort of like a charitable thing to show you helping people and whatever. And she has a connection through her brother, who is a pastor, to this guy who runs a home for um, kids who are in like age out of foster care, and they can stay there and like do a program and just learn about like adjusting to independent life on their own. And so she goes to interview with this guy to volunteer at this place. And yeah, so it's that kind of, she's doing it for, to help her career, but then
Yeah.
she ends up realizing, it's actually, she actually enjoys helping these young people. And she's with this group of girls who find out she's this famous influencer and start asking her for, opinions and help on her stuff. So just like with the Joe Hill book, this one took me a little while to get into because it's very heavy on the influencer stuff at the beginning, which
Right.
um, obviously you can tell looking at me, I don't care about makeup and and all that stuff. I have no clue. So that was a bit lost on me. But once it's got more into what she was doing at this, I should say it's not a home. It's just that they bought a house and property that they use as the main area where they can run classes and things. And then they have built buildings on the grounds for the living quarters for the
Okay.
residents that are staying there. So, um, yeah, and so it's following her growing relationships with these. The guy she had the interview with that runs the place, there's kind of, a bit of a little romance building, which goes through. And then, of course, but she's already with this manager guy who's also trying to, he's sending her on these like collaborations with companies that lead to problems and all this. And then she also has a friend, sort of like editor person who, yeah, puts her videos together and things after she records her stuff. And so
Hmm.
there's a bit of drama going on with her and how she relates to the company that the manager is a part of. And so, yeah, so she's got business issues. She's got the being with the people, the residents at the home, and then this romance building with the guy who runs it. And yeah, it just builds from there. It gets really interesting. This is classed as a Christian fiction book, so it does have some faith talk if that's something that's going to draw you in or put you off. There's not a whole lot of it, but yeah, so this is a clean romance, obviously, because of that. So definitely no
Yeah.
spice in this one. But yeah, so I ended up once I got more into it again after the influence of stuff calmed down a bit,
Yeah.
I did end up getting quite into this. So I did end up giving it 4 stars in the end. And this is a book that I did hear someone talk about it, but also it was a bit of a cover buy. So
Yeah.
it's a pretty
See,
cover.
I've not even heard of Christian fiction as a thing before, so
Oh,
that's new
well,
to me.
it's sort of a like it just says contemporary romance on the back, but basically there's
Yeah.
a few different publishers that, you know, specialize in that. So if you buy their books, it's like this is a Bethany House, and there's also Ravel, and they sometimes called inspirational fiction as well, but
Yeah.
basically it's just various levels of faith talk depending. And the no spice is,
Yeah, very
basically they
wholesome.
yeah. So there's no, you know, well, there's sometimes terrible things, but not in a, you know, you should be doing this kind of way, just in that bad stuff happens to people in life. But
Yeah,
your main characters are not going to be taking drugs and being
going to
promiscuous and
have
all that stuff.
escapes with slashing
Yes.
teeth. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, yes, I recommend.
Interesting. So, you might have said, but I just missed it. What did you rate it?
4 stars.
4 stars. Okay, that
Mm.
is a pretty high. I'll be
Yes.
honest, doesn't sound like my kind of book,
No,
but
I don't think it would be at all.
yeah, but that's okay. That is absolutely fine.
Hmm. So that is it for January. And do we want to give a little tease of what we're currently reading that will
We
be
can do. Yeah. Do you want to go first?
okay? I'm currently reading 2 books. Um, actually, I'm reading 3 books. I forgot about one because, well, I'll just say, I picked up this, which I will talk about like in our next video when we do a book haul. So I'm
Yeah.
currently reading Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor, which is a short book, but it's in a chunky that I didn't want to carry to work.
Yeah.
So I started reading on my Kindle. Amazon at Christmas time said, "Hey, do you want Kindle Unlimited for 3 months for 99 cents?"
Hmm.
And so I said, "Sure, 99 cents. Why not?" And I'm going to keep it because the monthly cost is like quite a bit less than the cost of one paperback. So,
Yeah.
and I realized how many things on my wish list are on Kindle Unlimited, or things I've found since, like Dungeon Crawl Carl. So
Mm.
I finally started reading that, and I was worried because everyone loves it. And then I thought, what if I'm one of the few that don't love it?
Yeah.
And I will just say I didn't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
So
And I don't know how well it's coming out, but you can see my sort of Dungeon Crawler
yes.
Carl on display there.
And then because it's Valentine's Day time, I started reading this book, which has just come out called How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates by Shaylee Thompson. This is a debut
Okay.
author who's local to me as well. And this is basically mixing a rom-com and a slasher film into one. It's about a woman who is super into horror movies and
Hmm.
rom-coms, and she goes on with her friend to a speed dating event, and there ends up being issues and a killer taking out people. So I'm not very far into it yet, so I'm
That
hoping
does
it'll
sound
be good.
interesting though.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is. I actually read about it. They had a little news article because it's a local author and
Yeah.
timely release, I guess. And as soon as I read rom-com slashes, I'm like, okay, I need this book.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. So I do not have the attention span for reading multiple books at once. Cannot do it. So I'm only reading the one book at the moment. But I am reading Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. It's a nice little
Oh,
edition that I had to pick
lovely. Oh,
up.
I was gonna say this too. I like that
Hmm.
sprayed edges is filtering down to normal releases, not just
Yes.
special editions.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that as well. I'm reading this for a book club that I'm part of, and their February sort of theme. So they the way they do this is each month is a genre theme, and then people can suggest books, and they'll pull one of those books out of like a hat, essentially, and that's the pick. So the theme for February was horror.
Nice.
My suggestion didn't get chosen. This got chosen. And I'm like, how many pages into it am I? 75 pages in now. I don't know where the horror is supposed to be. And
Oh,
maybe it's just me, right? Maybe my tolerance for horror is it's here and I'm just not seeing it. Um, but it's basically it is only because of the book club that I'm persevering with it and the fact that I DNF book. I don't DNF books. this would not be a book that I would typically choose to read. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, so I
I
did
have
have
never heard
some.
of it, so
I had
I'll be
some
curious to
curiosity.
hear next month when you've finished it, like how it ended up and
I
if it was
hope it
horror.
improves. I hope it improves. But it
Maybe it's
might
like
not.
an A24 film and it just goes horror at the end.
Maybe. So far, I'll be honest, it's just kind of boring.
Hmm.
But I can't DNF a book, so I will get through it. And I don't think it's going to be bad necessarily. It's just, I think one, it's not what I want from a horror book, and not every book can give me that, which is fair enough. But two, I think what it is trying to give, I don't know if I necessarily like the way it's trying to do it.
Hmm.
Those horror books where it's like it's about a thing, and we're going to make it real obvious that it's about a thing, but we're not going to say the thing that it's about, like explicitly. So like the one I always think of, which same book club actually. Have you heard of The Lamb by Lucy Rose?
No.
Okay. It kind of blew up a little bit in sort of like, I don't know, social media and stuff. It has a really good opening line. I can't bother to go and get it to read it out,
Hmm.
but it's about this like kind of little girl in a sort of family who are cannibals essentially. They eat people, um, but it's actually about this horrible relationship the girl has with her mother. And the book just keeps hammering that one thing over and over and over again. And there's a lot of other interesting things that are happening that you could focus on, but it doesn't want to do that. It just wants to really emphasize how terrible this mother-daughter relationship is. And I'm worried that this book is going to go down that same path of just here's the thing that it's about. We're going to hammer it continuously.
Uh, well, fingers crossed for you that it improves.
We'll find out. And even if it
Yeah.
doesn't, I'll find something better to read afterwards.
Hmm. Well, we're done then. That's January done. Um, we'll be back very soon with February because we're kind of playing catch up since we
We are.
just started our channel this month. But we didn't want to leave off January because well, that's how our brains are. Can't leave the year incomplete and just have from February onwards.
No, absolutely not. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, these were the three books that I read in January. You've heard me talk about them. Maybe that's inspired you to read them. Who knows? But it was fun talking about these. I enjoyed it.
Hmm. Yes, me too. It's good. We had quite a mix of books this time.
I discovered what Christian fiction is.
There we
So where
go.
can people contact us if they want to tell us, things that they've read maybe?
Well, comments down below. Easiest thing. Yeah, I don't know. Have we got
We have
anything
an
else
email
yet?
address. We've
Okay.
got the weekend shelf control at gmail.com email address. So if you have a comment if you want to say something that's too long for a comment, send us an email.
Hmm. And yeah, we might have more next time.
Who knows? Probably not.
Cool. All
Do you
right.
want to do it?
Um, thanks for watching, everyone, and we will be back soon with our January book haul and lots more book talk.